The alert tone chimed twice, low, deliberate, and far too formal to mean anything casual. Lurie paused with her fingers hovering above the console, her dark, reflective eyes narrowing. A private summons. From Commander Rourke. No subject line, no context, just, "Report to Deck A, Room 7. Immediately." Signed off with his usual lack of punctuation, like grammar had personally wronged him in some interstellar war. The bridge buzzed on behind her as she reread the message. 5 times. It didn't improve with repetition. She stood with mechanical slowness, giving the nearest crewman a deliberately exaggerated nod. "If I don't return, initiate search protocol R99. He blinked. "Isn't that for lost cargo?" "Yes," she said, already walking away. "Apply accordingly." She navigated the halls of Valkyrian 7 with trained precision, but her mind wandered. Had she misrouted the diplomatic frequency logs again? Had her casual nickname for the commander, Grumpy Grizzle Unit, been found in the chat archive? That one time she adjusted the gravity field in the officers' mess as a joke, was that finally catching up to her? She arrived at Room 7. The door, as always, opened with a hydraulic hiss that made every entrance feel dramatic. She stepped inside. The lighting was low, not dimmed for efficiency but for mood. That couldn't be right. A tray of untouched stimberries rested on the side console. No tactical screens, no reports. And Commander Rourke, famously rigid, was sitting, not standing, on a reclining bench sans uniform jacket. "Lieutenant Lurie," he said, "thanks for coming." She glanced behind herself to make sure no one else was being addressed. "You summoned me, sir. Immediate compliance is standard protocol." He gestured for her to sit. She didn't. "Permission to remain upright," she offered. He nodded, awkward. "Sure, upright's good." The silence that followed might have qualified as atmospheric if not for the faint noise of the sanitation unit humming in the corner. Then he said it. The words came out clean, precise, and so absolutely incorrect that she blinked several times, wondering if her translator implant had just suffered a minor aneurysm. "I want to have a child with you." A long pause followed, possibly one of the longest in interstellar diplomatic history. Lurie's expression didn't change, but her pupils contracted, then flared again like twin solar flares trying to compute the absurdity of his sentence. "Sir," she said slowly, "my linguistic processor is operating at 100% efficiency, and I still believe I must have misheard you." He exhaled, which was unusual for a man who barely breathed in meetings. "I'm serious. This isn't a joke. I've thought it through. As carefully as one can when requesting that." "That," she repeated. "You just asked your communications officer, who happens to be a Velari, a species currently under fluctuating diplomatic terms with the Earth Federated Council, to bear you a hybrid child, with no prior romantic or even casual precedents." He scratched his chin, sheepish. "Well, yes, when you put it like that it sounds insane," she offered. "I was going to say complicated." She stared. "With respect, Commander, there are protocols for this. Massive ones. That require at least 12 forms, 4 subcommittees, and something called a Reproductive Ethics Clearance Board, which I'm quite sure doesn't meet on weekends." He leaned forward, serious again. "It's not about politics or forms. I had this vision. After my last neural fever episode in the outer fringe, I saw something. A child, ours maybe. She stood in a room filled with humans and Velari alike. She said something, I don't remember what, but it made them all listen, like she was meant to be there. A bridge. I've never believed in prophetic dreams, but..." She held up a hand. "Commander, I once dreamed I was a floating cup of soup that solved quantum equations. It doesn't mean I want to marry a thermos." He didn't laugh, but the corners of his mouth twitched. A moment passed, then another. Lurie shifted her stance. Her ears, long and subtly twitching, registered a barely perceptible change in air pressure, a symptom of the environmental controls overcompensating for tension. The room was as quiet as a sealed airlock, and twice as claustrophobic. "I'm not saying yes," she said finally. I'm not even saying maybe. I'm saying, are you aware of how this request defies every diplomatic standard in the Coalition Alliance Codex? I've read it, he said, all 900 pages. You dog-eared the reproductive ethics section, didn't you? He didn't answer. Right, she muttered. Of course you did. He stood now, tall but not imposing. I don't expect an answer now. I know this is unconventional. This isn't a request, Commander, she replied, head tilting. This is a paradigm shift wrapped in a social grenade. I trust you to make the right decision, he said, and I know you'll consider it. Not because I asked, but because you've always seen the larger picture. She blinked at that. It was the first time he'd ever spoken to her like anything other than a subordinate. Possibly even the first time he'd complimented anyone without needing to file it through HR channels. She turned toward the door. You'll receive an official response. Of course. But just so we're clear, she added over her shoulder, if this turns out to be some bizarre Earth joke, I will replace your neural toothbrush with a plasma cutter. He finally smiled, duly noted. She exited, the door whispering shut behind her. Her boots echoed in the corridor, each step firm but thoughtful. A child, with him. Her brain spun faster than the ship's grav core. The AI's voice chimed in her ear, sly and amused. So, should I reserve the nursery module, or activate evasive maneuvers? Activate caffeine protocol, she muttered. Good choice, VIX replied. You'll need it. The sound of grinding gears wasn't coming from the ship. It was coming from Lurie's brain. She sat cross-legged on her bunk, data pads scattered around her like the aftermath of a research explosion. One glowed with Earth's Department of Cross-Species Reproductive Policy. Another scrolled an ancient Velari rite of binding. A third blinked gently with a warning. You have exceeded the allowed number of downloads for reproductive ethics material in one 24-hour cycle. Are you okay? She swatted it off the bed. I don't know, am I? VIX's voice purred through the room. Given the data surge from your query history, I've calculated a 73% chance that you are either considering mating, sabotaging a science fiction romance plot, or losing a bet. I don't lose bets, she said flatly. Then congratulations on the other two. Lurie groaned, rolling onto her back. Her ears flared slightly against the pillow. This is absurd. No Velari has interbred with a human, ever. There's a reason we don't even share food textures. True, VIX mused. Your people consider carbonated drinks a form of chemical warfare. She buried her face in the blanket. Why me? You scored highest in adaptability, gene stability, and social restraint. Wonderful. I'm genetically designed to be the least likely to cause a diplomatic incident. My ancestors would be so proud. There was a chime at the door. Not the commander again, this one was faster, lighter. Crew pattern. Ensign Dallo peeked his head in. He was half her age and thrice as nervous. Lieutenant, you missed the morning briefing. Commander Rourke covered your absence with something about meditation protocols. Is that a euphemism for murder? Sadly, no. He eyed the mess. Should I report that you're experimenting with reproductive science? She threw a pillow at him. Out. Dallo retreated, laughing, but not before giving a dramatic salute. When the child is born, can I be the weird uncle? The door slid shut, and silence reclaimed the space. Lurie exhaled, then reached again for the datapad displaying human child development timelines. 8 stages, dozens of variables, and none of it accounted for Velari genetics or cultural expectations. In Velari custom, children weren't just offspring, they were declarations. A child said something about its creators, about unity, purpose, and hers would say, we didn't even date, we just shook hands awkwardly and initiated a cross-species gestation because the commander had a dream. She opened a secure channel. VIX, access Commander Rourke's personnel logs, cross-reference with any flagged psychological events in the last 6 months. That's classified, the AI replied sweetly. I'm not asking to override. I'm asking for anomalies. A pause, then, He experienced a neural fever after prolonged exposure to the radiation fields of Kepler-63b. High temperature, hallucinatory potential. One log was encrypted during that period and never filed. That log could explain this whole mess. Or it could be a recipe for Earth chili. He was delirious. Still worth seeing. Lieutenant Vix added more gently now, "Are you considering it?" She stared at the datapad still glowing by her side. "I'm not sure. That's the terrifying part." Later that day, she arrived at the officers' mess, where Rourke was seated alone, nursing what humans referred to as coffee. It smelled like burnt ambition. He looked up. "Lieutenant." She slid into the seat opposite him. "I haven't said yes." "I didn't think you had. But I've also not filed a formal refusal, which means I'm in some kind of bureaucratic purgatory, where people assume I'm either confused or consenting." "That's fair." So she folded her hands. "Explain not just the dream, everything. Why me? Why now?" He leaned back. "The political truth is this. Tensions between Earth and Velari Command are fracturing again. Trade disagreements, cultural clashes. I attended 6 diplomacy sessions last month. None ended without shouting. So you want to produce a child as a peace offering?" "No, I want to produce hope." She stared. "That's dangerously poetic for someone who once wrote an incident report in binary." He gave a tired smile. "People need something they can believe in, not theory, not policy, something real, a child half of both worlds. Not raised as an experiment, raised as a person. You understand there's no guarantee this child would be accepted." "I know, and no guarantee I would survive gestation. Our biology isn't designed for this. I've read the risks." "You read everything," she muttered. He nodded. "Except the manual on how to talk to women, apparently." She nearly laughed, almost but not quite. "Okay," she said, "I will consider this, not because you asked, but because you're right, there might be something here, but I want parameters." "Of course. Medical oversight, genetic independence, no propaganda. If we do this, the child isn't a symbol, they're a being. No grand declarations. No speeches." He nodded again. "No speeches, I hate speeches. And I get full control of the name." He blinked. "That's negotiable." She raised an eyebrow. "Fine, you get the name. And one more thing," she added, standing. "What's that?" "If this turns out to be one of those long-play human romance scenarios, where you try to confess feelings during a solar flare or near-death moment, I will eject you." He chuckled. "Understood." She turned to go. "Oh, Lieutenant." She paused. "Thank you for not walking out." She didn't respond, just walked away, ears twitching once. Not in annoyance. This time, maybe curiosity. The shuttle door groaned like it hadn't been opened since the last galactic recession. Lurie kicked it twice, muttered something untranslatable in Velari, then smacked the override panel. The hatch creaked open just wide enough for her to slide through, landing inside with the grace of a cat and the vocabulary of a very frustrated diplomat. "You really know how to pick romantic getaway spots," she said, straightening her uniform as Rourke climbed in behind her. Calyx 5 was, according to official documentation, a decommissioned mining hub with minor radiation leakage. According to Rourke, it was perfectly safe if you don't lick the walls. "I wanted somewhere quiet," he replied, running a systems check on the shuttle. "Somewhere the press drones wouldn't follow." She raised an eyebrow. "So your idea of privacy involves unstable gravity wells and ghost signals. I suddenly appreciate your office more." The station's inner corridors flickered to life as they stepped in, ancient flickering lights struggling to do their job. The air smelled faintly of rust and filtered disappointment. A warning tone echoed from somewhere deep in the station's lungs, followed by an automated voice declaring in a tired, monotone drawl, "Welcome to Calyx 5. Please refrain from dying." "Well," Lurie said, "that's comforting." "Standard protocol," Rourke muttered, scanning for active power nodes. "I think I dated an AI that used to speak like that. I hope you broke up politely. Those things hold grudges." They moved deeper into the station, passing the remains of collapsed mining rigs and shuttered transport lanes. The silence between them wasn't awkward, not exactly, just dense. There was too much between them now, plans and what-ifs, and the quiet knowledge that something irreversible might be growing inside Lurie's future. Or not. She paused beside a rusted doorway etched with an unfamiliar symbol. Her fingers brushed the edge, and a pulse of golden light shimmered through the metal like breath. "Wait," she said. "This isn't part of the mining grid." Rourke turned. "You recognize that?" "I don't, but it feels old, very old." They forced the door open. Inside, the air was colder, cleaner, humming with a frequency that prickled against Lurie's skin. The walls curved inward like a sanctuary, and in the center stood a structure, part shrine, part machine, quietly glowing with ancestral light. The AI flickered into view, a golden projection shaped like a Velari woman with sweeping ears and eyes full of storms. "Bloodline recognized," it said, "initiating harmony protocol." The room lit up, symbols dancing across the floor. Lurie stared, frozen, while the AI projected a stream of history, Velari and human alike, braided together in spirals of light. Rourke whistled. "I was just hoping for a quiet conversation, maybe a vending machine." Lurie stepped forward. This is a unity chamber, ancient Velari tech predating even the first diaspora. They were built in secret, meant to protect hybrid lineages. This one's been hidden for centuries. The AI turned toward her, voice soft. "You carry a question. This chamber holds clarity." "I carry several," she muttered, watching the projection of two figures, one Velari, one human, reaching toward each other across time. Rourke was watching her, not the chamber. "What's it telling you?" "That this isn't as impossible as I thought," she said. "That someone else thought this could work, a long time ago." The lights dimmed, leaving behind only the shrine's gentle glow. They sat on the floor, backs against the wall, the heavy silence now comfortable. Rourke offered her a protein bar. She sniffed it suspiciously. "Why does it smell like petroleum?" "Because it is petroleum, but certified organic. Your species is a marvel of culinary disaster." He grinned. "You ever consider that maybe we're just trying to keep expectations low?" She chuckled, then grew serious again. "I didn't think anything like this existed, a place that accepts the in-between." "You're not in between," he said. "You're the future." She rolled her eyes. "Was that line in your dream too, or are you just practicing for the next council speech?" He held up his hands. "No speeches, remember. You banned those." They sat in silence for a while longer. Then Lurie spoke quietly. "If we go forward, it won't be clean. There will be backlash from both sides. The councils, my people, even some on your end, they won't all see hope. Some will see contamination." "I don't care what they see," he said. "I care what we build." She looked at him genuinely, for the first time since this all began. "Why do you trust this so much?" He shrugged. "Maybe because I've seen enough war to know peace isn't built in conference halls. It's built in small, ridiculous choices, like asking your alien lieutenant to make a kid." She laughed, fully this time. Then the station's power flickered. A loud crack sounded from above, and a beam groaned ominously. Lurie jumped to her feet. "Tell me you brought a backup shuttle." "I brought 3. I just didn't say how many of them worked." She narrowed her eyes. "If I die here, I will haunt you through every data stream for the next 10,000 years." "Noted," he said, already moving. They exited quickly, the chamber sealing behind them with a final flash of golden light. Lurie glanced back once. Something about it stayed with her, like it had seen more than she'd said aloud. Back aboard the shuttle, as systems hummed back online and Rourke prepared for departure, Lurie sat quietly. "I'll begin the protocol review," she said finally. "We'll need full oversight, multi-species compatibility scans, genetic stabilization models." He didn't say anything, just nodded. Then she added, "And you owe me 2 things." "Which are?" "First, a non-radioactive dinner. Second, a better protein bar." "I'll add it to the mission objectives." As the shuttle launched from the surface of Calyx 5, The ancient chamber beneath them returned to slumber, quiet, waiting, but no longer forgotten. The announcement from command came with all the subtlety of a nuclear sneeze. Lieutenant Lurie of Velari origin and Commander Elias Rourke of Earth's High Fleet are to present themselves for inquiry before the Interstellar Conduct Tribunal. Charges: violation of Intercivil Genesis Accords, unauthorized genetic experimentation, and improper use of personal quarters for non-strategic reproduction. Lurie stared at the holoscreen in silence. "I'd like to highlight," she said, sipping her nutrient brew, "that we haven't reproduced anything yet, not even a plant." "Are you suggesting we fabricate a cactus as legal cover?" Rourke asked from across the briefing table. "Might be safer than dealing with the tribunal. Cacti don't have a jurisdiction fetish." VIX's voice filtered in with a sarcastic hum. "For the record, I submitted no footage from your private meetings. You're welcome." "VIX," Rourke said, pinching the bridge of his nose. "How did this even leak?" "I suspect your encrypted messages were slightly less encrypted than advertised. Perhaps avoid titling your classified logs, 'Baby Plan V3 Final, actually final this time, next time.'" Lurie swiveled her chair and groaned. "Great. Now the entire Alliance thinks I'm genetically nesting with a human because of a bad file name." "That's not the only issue," Rourke said, sliding a datapad her way. "There's protest chatter building in both factions. Velari purists say we're corrupting bloodlines. Human traditionalists think this is some alien infiltration plot." She tapped the pad absently. "Anyone supporting us?" "A small group on Earth called Future Makers United. They make plush toys of hypothetical hybrid children. You have 2 action figures already. Oh stars. And 1 unlicensed musical." She threw her datapad across the table. "I'm not even pregnant." He leaned back. "I think that's the part they find most inspiring." The Valkyrian 7 entered orbit around Midos Prime, neutral ground for tribunal proceedings. Rourke's uniform was pressed and regulation sharp. Lurie wore her ceremonial translator crest, which hadn't seen daylight since the Athari embassy incident, also known as the Day of 17 Misinterpreted Hand Gestures. As they stepped off the dock, flanked by 2 expressionless guards, Lurie muttered out of the corner of her mouth, "If we're sentenced to shared re-education, I'm requesting a soundproof cell." "You'll miss my bedtime metaphors," Rourke said. "I already do. They're so creatively terrible, they loop back around to being art." The tribunal chamber was an angular coliseum of voices. Representatives of 16 species glared down from their illuminated tiers, some blinking from multiple eyelids, others simply projecting disapproval via psychic pressure. Chief Arbitrator Vren, a tall insectoid from the Quasari clade, clicked his mandibles and intoned, "You have been summoned under suspicion of breaching galactic bioethical standards. Do you deny the allegations?" Rourke spoke first. "We do not deny initiating a joint exploration of hybrid gestation." Gasps, audible gasps, even one fainted jellyfish. "But we deny that it was unauthorized," Lurie added. Section 4 of the Velari Human Accord states exploratory biological integration may be pursued with informed consent and internal oversight. "Internal oversight does not mean just your AI," snapped the representative from Earth's High Ethics Division. "Hey," VIX cut in, broadcasting from Rourke's wrist comm, "I'll have you know I passed every ethical diagnostics exam with a 99.8 percentile, and I only cheated a little." There was a pause, then a cough. From someone who didn't have lungs, Vren leaned forward. "And what of the child? Has it been initiated?" Lurie hesitated. "The process has begun. It is still in phase 0 gestation, bioengineered ex utero under scientific supervision. I'm not incubating anything yet, except maybe regret." "She's kidding," Rourke added quickly. "Mostly." They presented their records, medical, psychological, genetic simulations. A hologram of the projected child floated before the tribunal, long-eared, luminescent, and startlingly real. The chamber was quiet for a long time. Then Vren clacked again. You have 22 days until the gestation becomes irreversible. We will reconvene then. Until that time, you are under full observation. Great, Lurie whispered. We're on house arrest in space. On the flight back, Rourke slumped in his seat. Well, that could have gone worse. Hell, we could have been banned from physical contact. Imagine trying to pass each other in the hallway wearing magnetic repulsion suits. She snorted. We'd crash into the cafeteria like weaponized magnets. He stared out the viewport. You really think we're ready for this? She was quiet. Then, no one's ready to change the future. They just decide to do it anyway. VIX chimed in. Also, you have 5 new interviews pending, 3 fan letters, and 1 very enthusiastic marriage proposal from a Velari poet named Th Sen Lai who claims you're the embodiment of convergence. Please delete all of it, Lurie said, even the poem. Especially the poem. Back aboard Valkyrian 7, Lurie went straight to the science bay. The artificial womb chamber pulsed softly, already beginning the genomic weaving process. She placed a hand on the interface. Whoever you are, she whispered, I hope you have your father's stubbornness and none of his taste in coffee. I heard that, Rourke said from the doorway. She didn't look up. Good. You'll hear worse once you're changing diapers. He joined her side by side. The silence returned, familiar now, warm in its uncertainty. They stood there for a long time, watching the future begin in flickers of biolight. The explosion rocked the forward wing of Valkyrian 7, triggering red-level alarms and sending 4 administrative droids into a panic spiral, which, unfortunately, only involved spinning in place and shouting, unacceptable. Over and over, Lurie braced herself against the wall, ears twitching. Please tell me that was not the artificial womb chamber. No, Rourke called over the comms. That was just our defense grid having an identity crisis. Apparently, it now identifies as a fireworks display. Charming, is that your way of saying we've been attacked? Yes, politely. By Velari extremists with really strong feelings about blood purity. Lurie moved through the corridor at a sprint, bypassing falling panels and confused junior officers. Please remind them that if they rupture a containment pod holding a cross-species embryo, they will officially be the villains in every historical archive from now until entropy wins. I tried, Rourke said. They weren't receptive to character arcs. Outside the ship, Velari war skimmers darted like angry wasps. Inside, the prototype hybrid gestation unit glowed in its cradle, unharmed for now. The ship's science bay was shielded under triple-phase armor but not invincible. Lurie entered the chamber, breath sharp. The medical AI flickered to life. Vital stats nominal, genetic stabilization at 92%. Embryonic development has entered phase 3, neurobond encoding. She exhaled, that's early. Yes, it appears the fetus is exhibiting accelerated adaptability. Mixed genome markers are harmonizing ahead of predictions. I knew this child would be stubborn. Rourke burst through the door, jacket singed. Newsflash, I've offered a ceasefire. Velari Command has issued a temporary hold-fire order if we broadcast the child's existence publicly. Unfiltered. No edits, just the truth. Lurie turned. They want proof of life. They want proof we're not creating a weapon. She tapped the console. Activate visual relay, full spectrum. A small projection appeared above the pod. Not a full infant, not yet, but a form. Hints of tiny fingers, the beginning curve of long ears, a shimmer of soft, silver-blue skin under the synth light. Lurie's voice when she spoke was calm. This is not a prototype, not a symbol. This is someone. Rourke stepped beside her. We never did this to change politics, but if it does, maybe that's fine. The broadcast went live. Across 16 systems in dozens of languages and through every legally ambiguous data channel, the image of the child was seen. A blend of 2 species, a convergence of history. Backlash came first. Velari factions decried her as an abomination. Earth's conservative voices called her unnatural. One broadcast host demanded her midichlorian count, which prompted Rourke to ban that channel from ship access forever. But then came the quiet. The messages. A human mother whose son was born with adapted lungs because of Velari medtech. A Velari musician who composed a piece called Unwritten Bloodlines. A teenage refugee who simply wrote, "Now I believe I can belong somewhere." The council stalled, the tribunal recessed, but the warships didn't fire again. 6 weeks later, in orbit over neutral colony Uthar 9, the embryo was transferred into a stasis-grown gestational pod for final phase development. The first legal hybrid pregnancy was officially acknowledged. Rourke walked into Lurie's quarters balancing a tray of celebratory nutrient muffins. She stared. "Did you bake those?" "Define bake." "If you used a microwave and hope, I'm not touching them." "They're blueberry, possibly. Or maybe seaweed." She picked one up cautiously. "You know, I never thought this would be my life." "Same," he said, settling beside her. "But I think I'd be a much worse person if it hadn't happened." She nodded slowly. "I used to believe identity had to be preserved at all costs. Now I wonder if the real strength is letting it grow." He smirked. "Look at us, philosophical and parental." She elbowed him. "You still owe me a decent protein bar." "I found a vendor on New Carthage who swears by them. They come in 3 flavors, edible, maybe edible, and lawsuit." "Perfect." 3 months later the child was born. Not in a lab, not in a sterilized ceremony, but in orbit, surrounded by the crew of Valkyrian 7 under the shimmer of twin suns reflecting off the hull. The birth was quiet. The moment, anything but. Rourke held her first, hands trembling. Lurie watched, whispering in Velari words that translated barely to something like, "Light between bloods, flame between stars." Her name was Kia. Half human, half Velari, all hers. At the ceremony, reluctantly approved by both councils, Kia sneezed halfway through Rourke's formal speech and triggered a temporary shipwide alert. Lurie smirked. "That's your genetics at work. She'll grow into it. She already has your eyebrows. That's going to be a problem." "Hey." As the years passed, the war didn't vanish, but something shifted. Joint research centers opened. Mixed heritage schools formed. Velari music crept into Earth concerts. And every once in a while someone would say, "I heard about the girl born on Valkyrian 7. Do you think it's true?" It was, because Lurie, once just a duty-bound officer, had chosen the unknown. Because Rourke, once just a commander with a vision, had dared to ask the impossible. Because somewhere between orders and alliances, 2 people made something new. Not peace, not war, but a beginning.